Hello, and welcome back to the Geek on My Sleeve channel. If you missed us, it's probably been only about an hour, unless it hasn't. This is number 72, which is The Fall of Hyperion by Dan Simmons.
Woo, can't wait.
What a book, what a book. We are fortunate again to have two of our returning friends. Was just talking right before the stream went live about how, don't let me misquote you guys here, but how much we've enjoyed playing in the booktube space and how fortunate we've been that we've all had multiple book discussions this weekend, right? So give everybody a chance to say hi, introduce yourself, where we can find you, and what books have you talked about this weekend live, clockwise, Mr. Ramsey.
Just a little bit ago, I was part of a live stream discussing Lost Fleet. This is the first book, Dreadnought, first book in the second accompanying series. Carl was there with me. Also, Joe, Carlos from Spire Metro, and Admiral Star Knight, who is a budding author. And really enjoy the series. I am not done with it, so I had to pop out early, but enjoyed it quite a bit. My name is Ramsey. I run the Rajathon YouTube channel. And have a lot of fun doing that. Recently started a podcast where I do summaries going over science fiction and fantasy books. So if there's something people would really like to have a summary on, if they're continuing in a series, that's the plan for the podcast.
Nice.
All right, so this is only number 2 for me, with Chaz earlier over on his channel, link in the description below. We covered Bobaverse Book 2 again because it's just that good. Covered it previously on our channel, and then, Chaz was first time through the series, so we joined him for the discussion. And then now for Fall of Hyperion. And sadly, I did not finish the book, but I'm okay with spoilers because there's the you can tell me it, but it's kind of like seeing is believing, plus the author just does it in so many more words. So it's okay.
Yeah, fair enough.
Or
My turn?
yeah.
Okay. I'm Chaz. You can find me at Chaz Emme. Currently, that's the name I've chosen for the moniker on my channel, and I've been a busy beaver this weekend. Friday night I did a stream with Carl and Pete on Bobaverse Book 2, of course. Yesterday I joined the Dragon's Library Book Club for a live stream on Rage of Dragons by Evan Winter. So we had fun picking that one apart and sharing thoughts and predictions and all that good stuff. And now I'm here. So, and I want to echo what you said earlier, Carl. BookTube is a really amazing space. You make a lot of good friendships and find out a whole bunch of books that you never maybe even heard of. So it's a lot of fun. It's a great time.
Yes. And yeah, Carl, Geek on My Sleeve. If you'll see how I cleverly did that, you guys know each and every stream I've been on this weekend. This is number 3, The Fall of Hyperion. Having a blast with these lovely gents. And yeah, it's been a lot of fun. Really big highlight of the week. Looking forward to hanging out with you guys. The Bobaverse was a blast. Enjoyed rereading that. Trying to get Ramsey, letting him know that if he wants to catch up, I know he's picked up a couple of those. Hopefully we can get him in on the next one for Chaz's channel.
Yeah, I'd love to have you, Ramsey.
Yeah, I did get
I've got the first one. I need to read it though.
Yeah, it's good. Definitely one of our favorites here. Always enjoy talking about the Bobaverse, and it plays in the same space that we've been in. We were talking a bit about AIs with Ramsey over on the Lost Fleet one. and Joe and Carlos and Admiral Star Knight and awesome panel there. And then here in the Fall of Hyperion, we got AIs, and then the Bobiverse is like a whole new take on AIs. And maybe we just need to, after we get through all these, just like have a big artificial intelligence, stream and talk about all the awesomeness there.
Yeah.
Yeah, so much good stuff. And then I was able to catch Chaz's stream with the is it Dragon Library reading group?
Dragon's Library Book Club, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Just so many awesome Discords to hang out with and talk about books 24/7 with these guys. Again, shameless plug, links down below. And wow, just getting into it. The Fall of Hyperion. Pete and I try so hard to listen to these books a couple times before we really like get into the meat and potatoes. And it's hard enough getting through all of it in an hour, but like there was just so much awesomeness in this book. I wish I listened to it multiple times.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a lot of fun, and it honestly did everything that I wanted it to do, answering my questions from book one, and then some.
Yeah, and it was a different perspective too, right? Because we open up, just getting into it, pulling up my notes. The prologue is Severn's narrative or whatnot, where we pretty much see his dreaming bit. Whoever wants to jump into that first, would you guys just think of it all?
Or so, sidestep. This author probably does the best so far for plot driven. It's not so much character driven. Like, I got very invested in each of the backstories through our pilgrims, and a lot happened to all of our pilgrims. And of course my counting was way off because I didn't account for our first priest to die just to resurrect the second one. And very, very well done for the plot driven versus character driven.
It was, and it's kind of a shift, right? Because the first book, even though it had a great plot, I felt like it was much more character driven.
Yeah.
And I think he did that to set up the world. And then we've got that shift. Okay, now you know all about the characters. Here's what happens to them, and it's much more plot driven. But you're right, Peter. Yeah, it's a really, really great way to. And I think, from what I understood, Dan Simmons had wanted to make this one book, but the publisher told him no. So that's why he split it up into Hyperion and Fall of Hyperion. So, yeah.
I think it separated well.
It did.
The journey doesn't conclude, but, it was satisfying for book one. And then I can't really speak on behalf of book two. How was the ending? Was it satisfying?
I think so.
Oh yeah, I felt like it was for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
It didn't leave us hanging like the first book did.
No skipping off into the sunset, clicking our red slippers 3 times. Was it the Wizard of Oz?
Yeah.
I love the Wizard of Oz references in this.
Oh, I did too. Yeah, and they they had another one right there at the end of the book. Yeah. Yeah, that was fun.
It dug so heavy into the religious symbolism that, man, I as a father, like, Saul Weintraub's story is the one that still gets me the most.
Oh man, me too, Ramsey.
And so I listened to a message at church years ago about the level of sacrifice it would have taken for Abraham to put his son on the altar and be ready to kill his son as an offering to God. And then Saul Weintraub's story just continued to go down that path of what it would take to be, and it wasn't a covenant between him and God. It was his child saying, do it. This is what you need to do. And so it was like, oh man, like it, and then it even discussed like the intricacies of it wasn't a test of God testing Abraham, it was a test of Abraham testing God, proving that will God love me enough to not make this sacrifice happen, like
Or be
and then
worthy, right? Like,
yeah, to be worthy of my sacrifice and my love and my commitment. And then the whole thing where it went into how human consciousness created God, created the triune God with empathy. What is it? I can't remember how it separated it, but empathy went back in time and created us, who created him. Like, oh man, it was just
the levels.
And then like the way that AI was trying to create God by watching how human consciousness created God, they were trying to create God for themselves, so they didn't need us anymore.
Right.
And then go another level on that about where the AI consciousness and everything lives is on like the human synapses, right? Or synapses. Am I remembering that right? Like their web, the interconnectedness is.
Well, they lived in the hypernet.
Yeah,
But
they
used
they
us.
lived in between the forecasters.
Yeah, but they used us for computing power. So they tapped into
Yeah,
our brains for computing power. So they needed us for
Mhm.
computing power, but they didn't live there.
Right.
Whole matrix thing, using us for batteries and
I was gonna say, did
resources
anybody else
and everything.
Oh
get the
yeah.
Matrix vibe?
I totally picked up the Matrix vibe, especially when Bron Lamia met Johnny in the not in the, was it the datasphere or the metasphere? I think it was the datasphere.
They were in the datasphere, and then because the other Keats was afraid to go into the metasphere because that's the only thing they could access at the end when they finally destroyed Arcas.
Right. So during that whole time when it was describing the things that she was seeing and the datum plane and the way the buildings were constructed, I'm like, oh man, that is right out of the Matrix, except flipped, because the Matrix probably got it from this to a point.
I'll say, I think publishing date, this was like 89, 90, and the Matrix was mid 90s.
91.
Yeah,
91.
91.
Okay.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You were mentioning the narrator at the beginning, Carl. That was really interesting. It was a little jarring at first because you hear him talking about himself, and then all of a sudden he shifts to the second person, describing in second person what's going on in the dream. And that was a little weird at first, trying to figure out, kind of get my bearings, but then I started just really jiving with it.
I agree with you. It definitely took me a minute, kind of like figuring out what all was initially going on there, with Severn's dreams and the Pilgrims and CEO. And yeah, by the time like a couple chapters in, we start to catch our rhythm. We pretty much ride along from his perspective the whole time, right? Up until his demise, and then it's just like everything's fair game, because it's like we get to see Gladstone, we get to see what's going on in the greater space through him. And then whenever he dreams and takes his afternoon naps, he gets to see what's going on in Gladstone, and see kind of if we're sticking with the Wizard of Oz analogy, kind of the man behind the curtain, the monkeys, all like doing their deeds behind, leading to this disaster. And there's just so much I enjoy about this book and the levels to it, like the whole Gladstone component, right? Like we get hints of the big picture and how she portrayed humanity, but like trying to for the greater good, yet her decisions result in her being, the biggest mass murderer of mankind, right? Like they're talking billions, like whole planets and everything, and it's for this roll of the dice to try to help humanity survive.
Yeah.
And we get to see that through Severn's perspective, as well as the dreams following the narrative of all the individuals where, kind of as Ramsey said, like I'm right there with him with the Scholar's Tale with Soul and his daughter Rachel. But just so many of the character stories were moving, and you connect with them.
Right.
Yeah.
For me, I book one, the poet guy, I was like, he's just here so that I'm sorry, I'm not going to use their names.
Martin's the poet.
Or his
And
lover.
Bron Lamia?
Or
the girl you referred to as Batman?
Yeah, the Batman one. You killed my parents, so I gotta figure out what happened.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I felt like the poet was just there to amplify her story and to give us a love fling, because we had the
buttons.
with the the aging backwards child, we had
Rachel,
the family structure, and then with the poet and the detective, we had the love romance and the fling, and then, oh man, just came through with everything in this book. He was main character without even really being there, and after dying, ends up backdooring and connecting to everyone and everything else.
Yeah. Martin was one of my favorite characters. Not my most favorite character, but he was definitely one of my favorites. Just the stuff that would come out of his mouth was just. I thought his timing was impeccable. He was definitely our comic relief.
Absolutely.
He kept it more lighthearted and everything.
I didn't like him at all.
That's what he's there for, though, right? Like, you're supposed to hate him. He's the one that's causing problems in the group.
Right.
So
I felt like his story was kind of anticlimactic, because like the father dies. Oh, just kidding. He's reincarnated as the other father. And then the girl is essentially dead. But just wait, she's, actually in the know and in the megasphere and doing all the stuff. Like, everybody had a secondary thing. For him, it was get owned and sit there and wiggle. Like, I don't know. He didn't really have as satisfying of a story plot for this one.
Just curious. And we talked a little bit about it before stream, and we all kind of have some background or reference points with Christianity and Catholicism and everything.
Well, I know nothing about Catholicism, but I am a United States Christian, Protestant-based.
Right. Not to get into too much of the details, but similar philosophies and concepts along both. And we saw a lot of references and parallels with here. And if you look through them, like, I almost feel like every story kind of has it in its own way, right? Like, if you go down each rabbit hole of, thinking of, like, we were talking about the rebirth, right, with the fathers and everything, and just like his whole story there, the poet being put up on the tree for a period of time,
right,
hanging there, only to come back to us, like the not necessarily a virgin per se, but she conceived this child. Well, no, I guess actually they did the deed. I'm misremembering, but like, yeah, the prodigal child. Rachel's story I thought was really interesting. Early on, I was kind of like wondering if she could be, what did they call her? The
the Shrike's guardian person.
Yeah.
That was wild. I didn't
Moneta.
even.
Moneta.
Yeah, Moneta.
Thank you, Ramsey.
I
Or
didn't
so
even
she's
pick
not
up on that
Moneta,
possibility
it's-
until the end.
If you're not worried about spoilers, we'll tell you.
Yeah. I'm not. It turns out it's
She is
the
Moneta.
person who had the implant, her child with the cybrid, right?
Actually, no.
She's
No.
Moneta.
Oh, okay, so she is.
Rachel.
No.
Yeah,
baby.
Rachel,
Yeah,
who's going
Rachel is
backwards in
Moneta.
times.
Yeah.
Okay,
Her-
I called that last book.
Her
Okay.
baby is the Christ figure, because
Yeah. Right. Yeah. So
um,
yeah.
Severin is supposed to be like the John the Baptist figure,
Right.
and then the baby, he's the one who came before, and then the baby, bronze baby, her daughter is supposed to be the one who teaches.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. That was interesting, and there is a kind of similarity too, because even though it's not quote unquote a virgin conception, it's still a conception that logically should not have been able to happen, right? Because Johnny was a cybrid and she was a human, they shouldn't have been able to conceive, but they did anyway. So
well, but wasn't it through? Aren't the cybrids made from human genes or a rebuild?
Yeah, that they are. Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
But yeah, the stories very much lines up, and then I just had another. With Severn, like so much of the end of his final chapter before he passes and moves on to the afterlife, is on his way to Rome. Right, we get a lot of good old Roman Empire references, which kind of like puts in that time period.
Right.
All while being super futuristic with multiple the AI god, the human god, the hybrid god, and yes.
Or so sorry, real quick. In book 1, the soldier ends up bowing through a war game simulation and has his not conception with the Shrike mistress, starts with an M, and
Moneta.
then Moneta, and then I'm sorry, did you answer if they conceived a child, if that happened?
They didn't.
Or if
No.
because she was going backwards and he was going forward, nothing could happen.
We talked about in the last stream how there was the potential that maybe, because we didn't know who she was at the time, that maybe she was a vessel to repopulate whatever human element of the Shrike culture in the distant future had been exterminated, and maybe she was set to repopulate them somehow via coitus with Mr. Kassad or whatever. So, but that was just kind of speculation in our last stream, I think. But yeah, I don't think they actually conceived.
Okay.
I don't think.
Oh,
I think
well,
it's pretty.
that
I think
was
it's pretty
his
clear they did.
big, pull for him continuing on the journey was to kill the Shrike and to figure out whether or not he wanted to take Moneta out.
Right.
Yeah.
Speaking of the Shrike, if I understood it right, is the way I understood it is the Shrike the AI, the AI's deity that they created, or is the Shrike the messenger of the deity that they created? I kind of took it to be the Shrike is the deity that they created.
I think it's a little bit of both. I think the way that they engineered it was the Shrike is supposed to lure empathy back forward in time by creating. They don't understand empathy, so that was like the big idea. So they were creating the Tree of Pain, and the Shrike was trapping people on the Tree of Pain, hoping that empathy would come back and try to rescue them. And then the Shrike would have the ability to kill him, and in doing so, they would kill God and be able to have the only God that they were creating. And one of the AIs, I can't remember the name of the big one. Amen. They were all going to fight to see who could be, who could take over the entire consciousness and become God.
Got it. Okay.
Thank you for that breakdown, because
thank you.
Yeah.
I was sort of on point, but not totally. I didn't quite get that whole thing.
There's a lot of
so many
layers.
This book. Yeah, there's so many layers, and it's so dense. And we get the benefit of the perspective through Severn, who kind of like has access to everything through his dreams, through the metasphere, through his first persona as John Keats, and understanding all this stuff. But yeah, that's what I was getting at first at the beginning of the stream. Thank you, Rajathon, for that, because it's like, I wish I listened to this more times to get how all those layers fit in. And with the two timelines, trying to keep track of everything going forward and backwards, and like the final battle with was it Kassad and everything.
It took me a minute to figure out where in time he was.
Yeah, and then just also with the layers, like the party at the beginning of the book just seems so different. Like they have their own little piece of the universe, but yet by the end of it all, of book 2, they're also interconnected, right? And like you kind of assume that the author is going to do that, but then when you find out that like Rachel is actually Minetta, and her role with Kassad, and like the whole Maui Covenant thing from the politician or whatever, who's like the grandson.
The consul.
Did we figure out how the Shrike is keeping the people alive on the tree? Is it simply his time field manipulation, or is the Shrike is the one?
They have like a matrix-like connection to the back of their head.
Yeah, they literally do. They have a
Okay.
shunt, and so it turns out, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, but the Tree of Pain is actually an illusion created in their minds. Well, the pain isn't an illusion, but the tree itself that they feel themselves impaled on is an illusion created by the shunt that is connecting them to the Shrike's network.
Okay, but then
I thought they were gonna like Mastine was supposed to fly the Tree of Pain to try to attract empathy. Like I thought they were actually going to take it into the universe.
Yeah,
And
that was
that's
a
where
whole other
I'm
storyline.
I'm confused too, because the father's timeline, when he initially meets the Shrike in the labyrinth, you see all the crucifixes, or the
Cruciforms.
Yeah, the cruciforms, which are people who have been reincarnated so many times until the the law of conservation, just like how the other priest came back versus the original.
Yeah,
so
they're
I thought
basically
that's
all
what that
brain
was,
dead.
because the Shrike had the cruciforms and then was putting them on people, then putting them on the tree, and then doing time loopy stuff. But it's more like the not Keats persona, the Batman chick who has the shunt, which
Lamia.
then bring Lamia,
Lamia.
Okay,
Which
so
sounds a lot like another part of a female anatomy, which kind of is distracting.
Not at all. You're right, Ramsey. I didn't think about that before.
Yeah, a lot more similarities there with the Matrix as well.
Yeah, I think the Matrix took a lot from this.
I think they did. Yeah, as I was reading this, I'm like, wow, there's a lot that they pulled from that, especially the shunt thing. And now I kind of wonder. You brought up a good point, Ramsey, that, or maybe it was you, Peter, that talked about how it was you, Ramsey, talking about how Het Mastine was supposed to fly the tree. So I guess the tree itself isn't an illusion, but I kind of wonder because she found Martin Salinas connected to a shunt in that one tomb, and he was completely whole other than the shunt through his head. So I wonder if there was something about the shunt that created an image of them on the tree and made them actually feel the pain of being on the tree, even though they weren't actually there.
I
I don't know.
thought
It's so strange.
the tree was a real thing because that was our whole. Oh, the guy who we brought, who was part of the tree, who disappeared, book one, and
Right.
something about
Yeah.
a space rhino or whatever was supposed to escape, but never did. But is in there with him. I
Right.
assume the Shrike just ate him for lunch or whatnot, and then just went
No.
on to.
We
Convert.
found that out too.
Did we?
Yeah.
Didn't we? Yeah.
Mhm.
Head Messine, he comes back.
Mhm.
And is Templars? Is that the faction?
Yeah, the Templar
Yeah,
faction.
Templars of the Tree or something like that. They
Yeah, the true voice of the tree.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Because they were in talks with the Ousters. Am I remember that right? Because we end
Mhm.
up having
no, they were told the ousters wouldn't destroy them.
right.
Well,
Oh, yeah, just to
and
have a just kidding
they
moment.
made a pact
Mhm.
with the Ousters with the understanding they wouldn't destroy them.
But it wasn't the Ousters at that
Right.
point. It was the AIs.
Yeah, the AI is
using cybrids that look like ousters.
Right.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. The Ousters didn't really get show and tell today, or for this
You-
book. Like they were the
You got
couple I was.
more of it at the end.
You do.
Yeah,
Yeah,
okay,
we
okay.
see a lot of the Ousters at the
Yeah,
end.
after
They
seeing
have-
the soldiers combating them and the extra limbs and the diversion of the tree where they're not trying to stay strictly human, now we know just a little bit of implants that all the humans have are, yeah, how we've been taken over, but not really computing power. Yeah.
Mhm.
Anyway, continue. Ousters.
The ousters are really, really cool because they know how bad the AI is, and they were coming to try to warn us, or trying to
We
warn
shot
the
first and
people.
ask questions later.
Yeah, and so the AI was using the ousters as the bad guy, trying to say that, hey, these guys are the problem.
Mhm.
So the ousters coming to Hyperion, they used as, oh, these people are coming to attack. They're, this is the big deal. And then what they did is they created what looked like swarms, because their ships are called swarms. They have like a central ship that's built as a planet. And like the gravity's all, they've done all kinds of cool stuff with gravity where like you'll be sailing on a boat and all of a sudden you sail up the waterfall, and like they all had wings or fur, or they've done all kinds of stuff to modify their bodies. And the console goes and has a conference with them. It was really, really cool. But then the cybrids were basically creating what looked like swarms coming at them and just firebombing planets and destroying
Right.
planets, and wanting them all to go down into the labyrinthine worlds so they could because they created this cruciforms, and they wanted to put all the existing humans cruciforms on them so that they could continue to resurrect us for computing power.
Mhm.
And,
Okay, see, that's where I got confused because when the father goes so when the cybrid of the cybrid is talking to the father after the original cybrid dies, talking to Uman, we get to see how he got to where he was, which is talking to the Shrike in the labyrinth and seeing all the cruciforms. I felt like it was similar to what he had happened, where they already hold a person, but they've already been used up. The battery died, where conservation of mass, and after being reincarnated so many times through his original story, we got to see the dwarf-esque midget thingies that were just slowly, devolving, so to
Right.
speak. But then, yeah. I don't know. It'd be one of those weird questions like, since the people they're connected to originally died or are no longer valid, and you connect it to a new host, does it get a factory reset, or does it bring back their prior slaves?
Ah.
Well, they had an interesting conversation with him, and I don't know if you made it this far, where the Shrike took his cruciform out, but
Yeah,
left
I got
the
that.
other fathers out in, so that when he dies, he would be reincarnated as that guy. And it was cool that they changed him back to Paul DeRay, because really we get his story in book one,
Mhm.
and you don't really learn much about the other priest. His name is, what was his name? I can remember everybody's
Hoyt?
name but his.
Yeah.
Yeah, Lennar Hoyt.
Lennar Hoyt, yep.
So we don't really learn much about Lennar Hoyt, but they actually make him the Pope because
Yeah.
he was resurrected. Like, so,
And
and then there's that question: is Lennar Hoyt going to be the Pope when he dies? Because he
Right.
will then get resurrected.
He get grandfathered in, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so random side note, back in story 1 or book 1, when Father Hoyd is trying to leave the Tesla trees or whatever, when he gets so far from the labyrinth, he has the pain, and our secondary, guy who carried Father Hoyd all this way, he's in chronic pain throughout the whole time. But how? So since Father Hoyd's cruciform is gone, but he still has a cruciform, does that negate the pain, signal lost loop? Or is he still...
No, it said he was still in a pretty severe amount of pain.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, he still struggles with it on a daily basis, yeah.
but what is that compared to dying and getting resurrected how many times by the Tesla tree?
It was a lot.
Right.
So, like,
yeah.
what's
Like-
what's a little bit of chest pain when you've been electrocuted a couple thousand times or
Right.
whatever?
So,
Yeah.
and that's
And-
one of
and-
those... That was one of those things that was so beautifully done when he's having the conversation with the cybrid who was connected to the other cybrid. They're trying to decide, like, who would become God. And it's like, well, you've been crucified and you've already gone through a lot of it. And the cybrid persona is essentially an artist, and the whole MO is the name will be written in water. So it's very much like art we see today, where they don't get the due diligence, or they don't get the respect until after they're gone, and history repeats itself, and now they're respecting that art, which is kind of the whole words. Yeah, the religious feels of going through it initially. He was a blasphemer and crucified himself, but in reality, it's not until later that, gets his own religion, so to speak.
Yeah. Yeah, and they Pope Tillard the First, I think is what they ended up calling him, right?
Mm-hmm.
Pope Tillard the First, yeah.
Which I don't know what that means in Latin, but
well, Tillard was an ancient philosopher. Like he was a Catholic mystic, and it was some of his quote unquote heresies coming down from Socinian that Father Dura had originally researched and was teaching and espousing.
Oh.
And then now the tables have turned, and they realized maybe there's something to those quote unquote heresies, and so they gave him the name of the philosopher, theologian, what have you, that he so greatly admired.
The layers here.
Yeah,
Layers.
right.
Go from getting excommunicated to now we refer to you as Your Holiness.
Right.
Started from the bottom. So, so many layers in this book. And, Pete and I like to get into a lot of our other streams, just kind of like the takeaway or the lessons or the fun little tidbits that we enjoyed in this book. Curious to hear your guys' thoughts on it. For me, I enjoyed the part about the whole, you had the ouster swarm and their culture, and they were very much the boogeyman, like, the first
Right.
book and a half, and we had the consulate, who was kind of our triple agent, and the reason why he was such a good answer for being the point of contact with the ousters was his whole backstory was about Maui Covenant, how it was this, incredible ecosystem. I think it was like the dolphins, right? Like, pretty much an intelligent species, and how, what's our, it's not Hyperion, but what do we refer to as our main faction as that cloud
The
Gladstone.
hegemony of man.
Yeah, the hegemony
Thank
of
you.
man. Yep.
The hegemony of man. Like, it's very static. It's very much like consume to feed the collective humanity, like, we now got you hooked up to the web. We're just going to download all your resources, and here's plastic that we basically change this for our needs, right?
Right.
And the whole rebellion there at Maui was like, no, like, you're destroying our way of life. So, like, he was a great go-between, because that's the whole ousters thought process, way of life, right? Like, they modify themselves to get wings, to get fur, to be able to survive in the environments, instead of, we're going to change the environments and potentially kill sentient species to satisfy our needs and our wants. And, like, for me, that was like one of the big things, was like, the hegemony of man is destroying all this life, and the ousters are more like, well, we can coexist, right? And that was kind of, for me, like, one of the big battles, and a real interesting way that here we've been siding with humanity and going through their point of view on all this. But yeah, go ahead.
Did you guys ever watch Escape from New York with he's basically
Kurt Russell?
It's the sequel to Escape from LA. But basically at the end of it, they talk about a stagnant society, and how what they needed a kick in the pants to really create, like, kind of Hyperion. They talked about how the society was so stagnant, and they hadn't seen war, and they hadn't had hardship, that the tourists were going to the planets that were about to be attacked to watch the attack, because they were bored and wanted something more out of life. And that's kind of the, Escape from New York at the end. I don't want to spoil it for you guys, but
no, go ahead.
I don't know if I'll watch it anyway.
Kurt Russell basically destroys the United States' ability to use electricity. So it takes him back to a time without electricity. And he's like, this is what we all need. So it's kind of that idea of, like, as we stagnate, we need something to do. Listen to a YouTube video about the lifespan of a democracy, and how we've outlived, personally in the United States, our lifespan. The average lifespan of a democracy is 200 years. So, where are we going? What can we not fall into the same traps as we had in history? So it's a very interesting topic.
Yeah.
This would be pretty common ploy where there needs to be an enemy to incite revolution and to build new things and technological advances, as well as soon as there's not that threat, we kind of all go up against each other and diverge further.
Right.
That's when we've had our big technological leaps, though, right? Is when we've been at war, or where there's been a threat or an arms race to the moon.
Yeah.
65 years. First plane to first man on the moon.
Wow.
Yeah. Pretty amazing.
Wow.
It was because of the Cold War.
Yeah.
How
there we
far
go.
until we got the rover on Mars? I say we keep in
69 was the first rover 2008, 2009?
I think so. It's recent memory.
Yeah. 2008. I think you're right. Yeah, you're right, Carl. There's so many things. It does seem like it takes a big enemy. Well, I think that was your point, Peter, to really spur progress and change, and
Yeah.
and in the case of this book, that change was digression, right? They they eliminated their most powerful technology and sent themselves back.
And they have, yeah, and just the impact it had. Like they talk about the ultra wealthy have houses that are combined on other planets, so you'd literally have children on a different planet, and then the whole hypernet thing goes down, and they're adults by the time they would get to meet up, just because the distance in space.
Right. Yeah. One of the trips I think in the book was an 11-year time debt. Right. So you imagine a parent 11 years away from their child. By the time they actually get home, they're adults already. Right.
Yeah.
Well, you think of the government planet TS squared, they had no farms on planet. They imported all their food. So, the whole planet's going to die. They have no way to create food other than what's already there.
They're going to have a high protein diet for the next couple of years until the population gets under control.
By high protein, we're not talking each other, are we?
The house pets would go first. But yeah, what other fun takeaways or little tidbits did you guys enjoy from this book? There were just so many layers.
There were so many layers. Like for me, I mean, there was politics. There was ecology playing into the politics. I mean, that was the consul's big thing, right? Was getting vengeance on everybody for the wrongs that were done to Maui Covenant. And so there was that part of it, and the politics, and then the whole questioning reality, like what reality are we actually in, because time is not a straight line. It's all over the place depending on where you're at in the timeline. So everybody trying to figure out.
Timeline wasn't chronological, or time isn't chronological?
Time itself isn't necessarily. Their particular time frame in real human time was chronological, so to speak. But kind of like the doctor says, the timeline, time itself is all timey-wimey and wibbly-wobbly and
yeah, it was really interesting because you'd go and you'd follow a character story, and then you'd go back to somebody else and they'd like talk about a character, and you already know that character has done this or that, right? Because the time difference. It was really interesting. The thing that got me the most on this was the prose. Like to think about like sci-fi. People don't think sci-fi can have beautiful prose. Let me read you a short Let me read you a short part. Gladstone looked at the blank wall a moment. She thought of the worlds that she had walked that night. She'd gone through a bunch of Farcasters. Barnard's world, the lamplight through the leaves, ancient brick college buildings, God's Grove with its tethered balloons and the free-floating zeppelins greeting the dawn, Heaven's Gate with its promenade, and all these were first-wave targets. She shook her head, like he just subtly describing beautiful different locations and moving through it. Like I'm writing a short sci-fi story, and I was like, my story sucks compared to this.
Oh yeah, the prose was just above and beyond the level of language, and that's why I've always said in my original review for book 1 of Hyperion, I labeled it literary science fiction because it's on that level with the great literary works. But yet it's a science fiction book, and the prose was just beautiful and rich and immersive and painful at times. Not in a bad way, but in a good way. It tore at you.
We like that kind of pain.
Yeah, exactly.
I said it before that the way I found this was like a top 10 sci-fi list when I was kind of in a reading slump, and I clearly see why after getting to this point. I want to continue the story. I feel it wrapped up really well, but it's just definitely on there as must reads if you're in the sci-fi space.
Oh, most definitely.
Throwing Peter in the spotlight here. I always look for excuses to get him to play outside of his little subgenre of lit RPGs. I don't know anybody new to the channel.
No.
That's not enough combat, not enough lit RPGs. So while we both really enjoy that space, for me at least, I feel like just so much about this is different in the writing style besides lit RPG. So Peter, kind of like your perspective, really enjoying what you enjoy about the lit RPG realm subgenre and all its stat combat goodness. What's your take?
So all in all, like I thoroughly enjoyed the story, and kind of back to what I said earlier, where this story excelled for not being character driven and being plot driven, and that's where I am very bad with names. So
We got these two
there were
gents here
a
to
lot
help
of
us.
main characters and whatnot's going on, but in some respects it was more just to emphasize a point or to give a point of view for the greater whole, because they're kind of the representation for the faction side or for the religious side or so on and so forth. Yet again, I want to see more of the ousters. They've been a bit of the boogeyman. You know, we've seen them interact.
How many books are in the series? Because I wouldn't be surprised if we get to see more of them. Yeah. And hopefully you guys.
Maybe with Endymion we'll see more.
Yeah, hopefully we can.
Isn't the next one Rise of Endymion?
It's the next one is Endymion, and then Rise of Endymion, I think, is book 4. I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
Okay.
I could be wrong though, Ramsey, but I think that's the order.
I can hit Goodreads really fast if you'd like.
But yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed it. It was so the pacing of the first book was pretty good, because it was like, oh yeah, we're on a pilgrim, we're gonna save the world, and here's all our backstories. Where normally you get, or at least for what I've been dealing with, you get the main story and then you get like a 0.5 for, hey, here's this character's backstory or where they came from, or you get like a brief little origin. But they did really well incorporating it in the first book, just to completely almost make it a relevant second book, because there's so much more going on. I enjoyed it.
Endymion is the next one.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. I can definitely see, like, you have to, for this book, you really have to appreciate philosophy, I think. Like one of the top reviews that I found when I pulled up the book on Goodreads was this reader who, she gave it a 1-star review. She loved the first book, and then she gave this book a 1-star review, and she said, WTF did I just read? I'm like, she said there was no substance. It was just all philosophy mumbo jumbo. And I'm like, well, there was substance to it, but I can see if you're not into philosophy, it might get a little long in the tooth.
I'm here to read. Don't make me think about it.
Right.
Like,
that's what I appreciate about books is, if they make me think and, think outside the box, especially, and boy, did this book ever do that.
It follows the vein of like books 2 and 3 in the Dune series, and going into where Leto the second, and his journey through time.
I still need to read those.
Feels that way a lot to me.
Yeah.
Or wait, didn't they reference the Jesuit training or something somewhere?
Benny Gesserit?
Yeah.
No, Jesuit is like the old Catholic priests that would go
Jesuits.
out. The ones that always got eaten by cannibals.
Yeah.
Oh.
I like yours better, Pete. But yes, Yes.
But I do think that's what they're based on. The Bene Gesserit are
I
based
think
on
so.
Jesuits, and so it does kind of tie in together. Frank Herbert does kind of mashes like Islam and Catholicism and what they might morph into many years from now.
Right. That's for sure.
Shameless plug. Eventually, we're going to get back to the Dune series because I finally got Pete to read it. Chaz was nice enough to join us for, I think, the first one. But book 4 is my favorite, God Emperor of Dune, because it's like heavy philosophy and
Cool.
next step. I don't want to do any spoilers, but yes, Leto the Second and all the goodness. Whenever you guys are ready, we'll get it back in the queue. Any excuse to hang out with our buddies. Other shameless plug links down below to hang out with those guys. There's just so much awesomeness about this book and the like just the layers and the detail. And I want to say book 2 we have close to 10 point of view characters throughout this story.
I think you're right. Yeah.
The layer on that there it's just incredible.
Yeah.
Yep.
Where
Thank
we had
you.
the show and tell.
Yeah, Ramsey. How'd you say that again? Book 3 of the Cantos?
Endymion?
The Hyperion Cantos. It looks like the Shrike and people are riding on a raft, which is very reminiscent of some Samuel Clemens.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Couple of things, just real quick. I know we're getting in closer to the time probably, but a couple of things I wanted to bring up about this book. I can definitely see the Terminator pulled from this.
The Shrike and everything there.
Going back in time.
Yeah, because the Terminator going back in time to kill John. What was his name? And then John Connor, and then eventually later on, John Connor comes back in time to prevent his being killed, and that whole
time loop.
Yeah, that whole time loop. It seems like they pulled from this a lot for that.
The best steals from the best, right?
Remembering it, but isn't it called like the butterfly effect, where if you go back in time and do something minuscule, you're going to completely skew the timeline? Like if you go back and kill a butterfly, you're going to, end the world, or you're going to make it so apes take over or some other. But man, all these sci-fi books are just like, time? What time? This is my time.
Yep.
It is pretty interesting to see how that thought process will come around and move. Like read 11/22/63, where you go back and save John F. Kennedy, and if you do, like, what would happen? Like, how would America be different if John F. Kennedy didn't die?
Right.
Yeah, we wouldn't have those driving factors of and the stress on the words. Anyway. But yeah, how much would it change?
Yeah, there's a lot of facial hair going on in here, Carlos.
Yeah.
Barbershop. Quick question, and this is just a theory. Hypothetically, having destroyed the AI by blowing up the Farcasters, because they in a sense
were they destroyed or just trapped?
They were destroyed, I think.
I thought they destroyed a lot of their space, but they were like went deeper or like.
Well, they have a metasphere, but I think. I think the Farcasters essentially caused the death of the datasphere.
Okay.
And then you have the metasphere, and I don't know if the AI still exists in the metasphere, or if only the Keats persona exists there.
Because he hopped on the ship, right?
Well, right, he didn't want to go there, but he only has the potential to go there. Yeah, he was afraid to go there.
Yes,
Well,
he did. He did join the ship at the end, and the ship started spouting poetry at them.
Yeah, right.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes.
But the thing that I was thinking of, because the Shrike did not get destroyed, I kind of wonder if the Shrike is an entity all to itself, or maybe the Shrike is a hybrid.
I thought the Shrike did get destroyed. Ron
I
Lamia
don't think
put her
so.
hand on him, and he turned into crystal, and then fell over and shattered.
But he's only one of the Shrikes.
Or
Okay.
yeah, aren't there like hundreds?
Yeah, there's like,
Because that's the soldier's
Or
chair
Yeah.
where
is
he
that
goes to
him?
fight.
Oh, his shadow clones or whatnot.
I
Yeah.
definitely need to go back through book 1 and book 2 again before getting to book 3. There is just so much.
yeah.
And shameless plug for Ramsey, who's doing it. We've done a couple. What were you branding it? What the feels, or what without the feels, where like
Yeah.
you data dump.
without the feels, summary recaps, data dump, because in this is all about the feels.
Yeah.
But
Ramsey
Ramsey,
does.
if you want to get Hyperions 1 and 2 done for us before we get the third one on your podcast,
I will work on it.
Yeah, I would love to go back through and just, there's so many moving pieces between Gladstone, between the AIs, through Severn, plus the 6 different main character points of view, 7 main character points of view, 12 main character points of view. Like, yeah.
Yeah, there's so
This-
many.
So wait, hold on. At the end, did everybody die but one to fulfill the Shrike prophecy?
No.
Nope.
No,
Okay,
no.
because we killed a bunch of people, but then they came back.
But that's how it
So-
works. Oh, wait. Yeah, go ahead, Ramsey.
Technically, only the priest died, and then he was resurrected as Dre. Salinas was hung on the tree. The console fell into the water, and you thought maybe he died. No. Hetmastine died. He didn't
Right.
make it.
Yeah, Hetmastine did die. That's true.
Shrike did
Leonard Hoyt is
visit everyone,
technically
though.
dead.
Right.
Oh, and
Yeah,
then the Keats persona, his body died, but then he
Right.
merged with the ship's AI.
Yep, exactly.
So he technically had 3 deaths.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
I felt like
who's
we
counting?
killed everybody, but then they had a get out of jail free card because we killed the initial
It's odd.
priest
4.
just to have the other priest. Yeah. And same thing with the the lady who had the data.
Braun.
Hmm,
Braun Lamia? Batman?
Yeah, sure. We'll go with that.
Well, so Braun Lamia, her name literally means she's from a planet with extra gravity, so she's brawny, and she's the woman, and so she's laid at a B. Like
Right.
her name is totally an allegory. Like she is not like probably everybody's name is.
That. Yeah, that makes
And
me wonder about the
yeah.
rest of them.
We never,
we know
get-
John Keats definitely
That's something
is.
I can have a lot of respect for because I'm super bad with naming conventions. I normally
Yeah.
directly
and we
label
never
it
get
what
the
it
console's
is.
name. We never get the console's name.
Yeah, that's true. We never do. And then, of course, Saul Weintraub would be short for Solomon.
Mm-hmm.
Headmastine.
Yeah, I don't know
Headmaster.
on that one. Maybe. Yeah, that's true. I don't know. Yeah, there's some interesting names for sure, and I especially loved all the Keats poetry in the story. Right.
He must have had a lot of respect for him because he spent so much time with John Keats. Like we redid his death, we redid talking about like how he felt. Like the poetry of it was just beautiful, but like how interconnected was Keats to the story? And maybe that was his favorite poet growing up or through school, or like the town was named Keats. King Billy created a whole civilization around John Keats. They continued to rebirth the persona. They followed his trek to Rome. I mean, they did so much with John Keats in the story.
Yeah, they really did. Like one of my favorite quotes And I'm not really big into poetry myself, but some of it was just really stark. And one of my favorites is, "O folly, for to bear all naked truths, and to envisage circumstance all calm, that is the top of sovereignty." And at least if I'm reading it right, he's basically saying, if you're a person who can handle all the truth laid bare, in spite of your circumstances, you truly are a sovereign being. And I thought that was pretty powerful.
Yeah, great takeaway.
Yeah.
Great takeaway.
Is that the Uman moment?
Let's see. I'm trying to remember
When he's
where I
asking
got
them
it
if they
from.
can survive hearing the truth or whatever.
Oh yeah, I think it was. Yep, you're right, Peter. I think so. Yeah. Yeah. So much good poetry, and
It's a great book. It
Yeah.
definitely going to be one I reread and come back to.
I think so too. Yeah,
Um,
totally.
And yeah, now I feel the need to listen to more poetry. That way we can get our writing level, up there for our own cantos.
Yeah.
Stay tuned. Follow these guys on social. We're kind of getting around to that limit. We try to hang out for an hour, though I feel we could easily talk 3 about how awesome this is. But I know we all gotta get the kids taken care of, et cetera, et cetera. So, final thoughts, guys. Anything you feel like we really brushed over, missed? I know there's a lot we missed, but yeah.
Well, the Hyperion 1 and 2 are definitely my top 5 books of all time.
Wow.
I think. Yeah.
It's good. It's definitely up there for me.
At least
First one
for
is.
sci-fi.
The second one, no. I
Ramsey
didn't enjoy
said
the second
first
one as
one.
much.
Okay.
Yeah, first one, maybe top 3. Like, it's that
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
Did you guys talk in the first one about the Canterbury Tales connection?
I don't know that we
I
did.
don't know what that is.
the way it's formatted in kind of a
I've been told he
Canterbury
did that
Tales
on purpose. I've never read the Canterbury Tales, so I don't know. But supposedly the 5 different stories as they travel is the set up exactly like Canterbury Tales.
Yeah,
Okay.
it is. Mm-hmm.
But I've never read it, so I can't say.
Canterbury Tales for those of us.
From Chaucer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Chaucer's Canterbury Tales.
Okay.
So that was a strong point. Like, overall, the story didn't really blow me away. I'm going to continue the series, but just the formatting and the structure of the story really was quite different from the other stuff I read, where normally we have like one main character, like I said, character driven, and you follow them through and you interact as they are interacting, and that's how you're getting the development. But from this, it jumped around and had several different perspectives, as well as, going forward while getting everybody's backstory was pretty cool.
It's not an easy thing to do. I mean, like, hats off to Dan Simmons, just being able to tie that many point of view characters together in I want to say a cohesive story, but I think it is a cohesive story. There's just so much there. This is not a book I could read a chapter at a time over like 2 months. By the time I get to the end of it, I'd be like, what? Like, there's so many moving pieces that you have to keep in your head that, yeah. Well done. Well done. Yeah. Final thoughts, gents. Want to give you a chance to share anything cool and upcoming in your guys' space before Pete and I talk about Geek Out. Where we at? 73 coming up next. So, Ramsey, Rajathon, what's any what podcast is next? Like
finishing The Eye of the World. I did the prologue through chapter 5. Enjoyed doing that a lot. And then I'll probably go into Hyperion next, or finish and reading the Assassin's Quest story. doing a read along on that one. Might jump into that to work on the podcast. I really want to get a one fantasy book, one sci-fi book, back and forth.
Nice.
Currently working on 2 fantasy books through the podcast, so I really need to go sci-fi next.
Nice. Which would lit RPG be in fantasy or sci-fi when we convert you?
I would say sci-fi, but I would probably categorize it as sci-fantasy, which is kind of where I put Dune.
Star
so-
Wars.
Yeah, I put
Which-
Dune in that.
And
Realm
all of
too.
Brandon Sanderson's books are sci-fantasy, really.
Yeah. Fair enough.
So.
Me? Alrighty. So yeah, my this was my busy weekend. So kind of calming down this week. I am gonna be doing just a spoiler-free review for Fall of Hyperion. I just I read Breach of. Everybody there?
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh,
sorry.
watching you.
I
okay.
forgot I could
Highlighting
click
you.
other buttons.
I'm
I should have
alone.
done it for Ramsey, but yeah.
Yeah. So I just finished Breach of Peace by Daniel Green. If you know who Daniel Green is,
Yes.
I read it in one sitting. Of course, it's a novella, so that's easy to do. I started it this morning and I finished it this afternoon. So I'll eventually be
curious.
doing a review for that one. I was very impressed for a debut. I was pretty impressed.
When do your videos usually drop again? Is it Friday?
Every Friday, yeah.
Every Friday. So you said
Yeah.
that's this next Friday, huh?
Yeah, probably Fall of Hyperion. I'll do kind of a spoiler-free talk
Okay.
about, and then Breach of Peace after that.
Okay. I'll
and
watch for it.
Yeah, so I won't be super busy on my channel this week or in the coming weeks going forward, but I'm going to have some fun stuff. I'm hoping to do a book tag, and I'm going to do a channel update at some point because I just filmed my 100th video. So
Congratulations,
So,
sir. Yeah.
pretty exciting.
Yeah, that's very exciting.
After almost 2 years on BookTube.
Uh,
Sidestep. Everybody gets those books when their baby is born, and you're supposed to like check all the milestones. And I was very bad at it, and I never did. But these are milestones that I need to check.
Right?
You know, for subscriber milestones, for video milestones, for yearly like.
achievement unlocked.
That's right.
100 videos. Way to go, Chaz. A lot of people don't make it that far. But yeah.
It's easy to want to give up sometimes, but just stick with it. It's a lot of fun.
Then you have weekends like this where you get to talk about 3 books with lovely people like
Exactly.
Ramsey, and the question's still out about Pete over there.
Yeah, but I have buttons.
Didn't
I can
finish
click
the book.
buttons.
So Pete, what's happening on your channel this week?
Bow.
Oh.
So
Viridian Gate.
yeah, Viridian Gate Online Cataclysm is the first book. I thoroughly enjoy the book. It is a lit RPG, if you can't tell, and essentially the premise is there is a comet or a meteor that is going to crash into the Earth and wipe out existence as we know it. But because of technology and wealthy individuals, they take essentially a mega server on steroids and then some and bury it deep in the earth. And people get in these pods to interact with the game. And after so long in the pod, it maps your brain and you become one inside the game. So it's kind of like a apocalyptic, futuristic setting, but then it deals with a lot of I guess philosophical questions for the good, the bad, the ugly. It is pretty. I like. It does lit RPG. It's not super like stats heavy. But the thing that amazed me about this series is the author collaborates with other authors, and so yeah, I didn't read through the full series yet, but everybody that we pick up in our main team gets their own like origin story, or at least so far we're at 3 out of, X. So it's yeah, I thoroughly enjoy the series. But I don't
Nice.
know what's going on with this cover business, because like the one on the left was the original cover, and then randomly Audible updated, and I got the one on the right. Yeah. Yeah. Anyway.
Maybe it's one of those books with multiple cover POVs.
So what you're saying is it's like the series we just read, but it breaks each journey up into different ones. And instead of going against the AIs, we just jump aboard on a massive server and upload ourselves.
I'm trying to think how far that is and if I can say it, but
No. You can't say it. No spoilers
Okay.
on Viridian Gate Online. We're past our usual time. We appreciate you guys hanging out with us. Yes,
It's been fun.
it's been a blast. Such an amazing weekend.
Thank you for
Make
including me, guys.
Yeah, anytime, Ramsey. It's good to see you, man.
Absolutely. Ramsey's having his light controllers rebelling over there, so we're going to wrap on this. Make sure you follow these gents' channels, descriptions below. Always catch us on Discord and social media, and we hope to geek out with you guys again here soon.
bye.
Bye.
Bye.